This is the options trading tutorial for the P2P-DeFi wallet. I'm going to assume you've seen the prior tutorials since there's a lot of similarities with the DEX and lending pages. Just like with the lending protocol, the options protocol is designed for the DeFi synergy paradigm and therefore doesn't have its own liquidity source. Instead, it relies on the DEX for that. Please note that the hardware wallet bug discussed in the P2P wallet README has not been fixed yet. So you will not be able to sign options transactions using a hardware wallet yet. Once again, I fixed a few bugs since last time, so you're going to need to do the update process again. Go to Git Clones, P2P wallet, right click and open in terminal. Move it to the side. And then you want to do git pull to get the latest. I've already done this, so I have it. Then cabal build to build the new wallet with the fixes, and then this command to replace the one in your home directory. And now in your home directory, this should have the bug fixes. So let's launch the wallet, and we're going to use the testnet again. Just like with the other tutorials, we will use different profiles to pretend to be different people. With options, there is the writer of options contracts, which is the seller, and then the buyer of options contracts. In this tutorial, Charlie is going to be the seller and Bob is going to be the buyer. Let's start with Charlie to show how to create contracts. We go to the options page this time. Adding a wallet is exactly the same as with the other DeFi pages. You click the add wallet button, which is underneath me, and then you choose the staking credentials, the staking credential you want to use from the dropdown. So I only have one now, so I'll click confirm. When you add the credential, the P2P wallet will look up your contract history and if you have any current contracts. We are going to skip the notifications for now. The layout is very similar to the lending page. You can be a seller of options contract, which is the writer, or you can be a buyer of options contracts. And if you don't know what terms to offer, you can also use the research tab to see what other active contracts are offering. We're going to cover each one in more detail. The flow is very basic. Sellers create potential options contracts to sell. These contracts are called proposal contracts. A buyer can look through the proposal contracts and decide which one to buy. Once purchased, the contract becomes an active contract, and the buyer has until the expiration to execute it. These are American-style options contracts. To give a little bit more detail, when the buyer purchases a proposal contract, they receive a key NFT just like with the lending protocol. This key NFT is the key needed to actually execute the associated options contract. It can be freely traded on a secondary market. And just like with the loan keys, the options keys can be managed from the home page. We will go through the whole process so you can see it from start to finish. Let's start with creating some proposal contracts for Charlie. Charlie currently doesn't have any proposal contracts open. To create one, you just have to click the new button. And then this menu pops up. Just like with all of the other menus, every field has an associated help message, so you can click it to see more details about it. You can specify the offer, which it could be 10 ADA, 100 JED, whatever. You specify the ask asset, so which asset you're asking for in exchange for the offer. Then you specify which asset will be used for the premium payment. So for this, let's do 100 ADA. The ask asset will be JED, and the premium payment will also be in JED. Then the payment address is where the premium payment will go upon purchase, and where the ask asset will go upon contract execution. You can change this address while the contract is active, but you need to initialize it. This drop down here is the drop down of all of your tracked personal addresses in your homepage. I only have the one right now, so we're just going to stick with that one. Finally, the possible terms lets you set the premium, strike price, and expiration in that order. You can offer an assortment of possible terms by separating them with new lines. So you go to the help message, it tells you what the format is. It's premium, comma, strike price, comma, expiration, using the 2-digit month, 2-digit day, and 2-digit year. For the expiration, it expires on midnight on that day using your local time. So let's do The premium for the first one will be 2.5 JED. The strike price will be not 0.9. The expiration will be midnight on January 1st, 2025. The second possible set of terms is a premium of 3.5 JED, a strike price of 0.93, and an expiration of January 3rd, 2025. And then the final possible contract would be 5.5 JED for the premium, strike price of 1, and the expiration will be January 7th of 2025. And then you click confirm, and it gets added to the builder. This is the minimum UTXO value that must be stored with this proposal contract. This deposit is going to be stored with the active contract. So you deposit it for the proposal step. Then when the contract is purchased, this deposit will carry over and be the deposit for the active contract. And then when the active contract is closed, either it's expired and you close it, or it's executed, you will get this back upon execution. So this is a deposit that you will get back at the end of the options contract lifecycle. If we go to the builder now, we can now see the proposal that we're about to create. This is the staking credential we're going to be using to protect the proposal. It's for 100 JED, or 100 ADA that can get converted to JED. And then these are the possible terms. Each row is the actual choice for the buyer. The buyer must pick an entire row. They cannot mix and match terms. So the first choice is a premium of 2.5 JED, strike price of 9 cents per ADA, and an expiration on January 1st. The buyer will be able to pick whichever row they want. Let's create 3 of these for Charlie. Then to balance it, each proposal must be stored with the actual offer amount. So in this case, it's 100 ADA each. So let's have Charlie balance and then submit this transaction. We go to home. We're going to use this address as the change address. Then we need to specify collateral, and we need 300 ADA in total plus the deposits for each contract. So this should be more than enough. And now we can build the transaction. And again, this is going to create 3 proposals. The total transaction fee is 0.47 ADA. We need to sign with just the personal keys. We have to use the terminal to sign because the hardware wallet bug still hasn't been fixed. So let's export this transaction and then go to the terminal to sign it. This is the command we're going to use. Cardano hardware transaction sign. We have the transaction body file. This is Charlie's personal key. We don't need the staking key this time, and then we're going to output it to tx.signed. Click, just press enter to sign it, and then we go back to the wallet and we can submit an external transaction. So you click underneath me, the builder tools, submit external, and then type in the file path and confirm. And this is the transaction hash for that. So now we just need to wait for the transaction to get processed. Okay, so now you can see the proposals here, but if we go to the notifications, proposed options contract statuses have changed. It's just like with the loans notifications. Ideally, they'd be more detailed, but this is enough to get you to go check. And then you have some contracts have expired. Charlie actually has some active contracts, which we'll get to in a bit. So you can see the 3 proposals now created here. You can sort or filter them. Again, each thing has an associated help message, so I'm not going to go into detail here. You have the offer amount. This is the output reference again for the UTXO, the timestamp for the UTXO, and this is the payment address that will be used for the contract. And you can always edit or close the proposal if you want. Let's switch to Bob now to have him buy the contracts. Let's log out and go to Bob. Then we want to make sure we have the most up-to-date information for Bob's wallets. And Bob still has his loans from last time. So to buy options, you're going to go to buy this time. And then you need to specify the offer asset and ask asset. The premium asset is optional. If you don't set one, it will return all contracts regardless of what premium asset is required. So this is from your perspective. So Bob has Jed and he wants ADA. And we're going to leave the premium asset blank and just click confirm. This shows all proposal contracts offering ADA in exchange for Jed. So it's the reverse of what Bob actually has. So you can see this contract is offering ADA. These are the terms that are possible. And there's the 3 here. You got it looks exactly the same as from the seller's perspective. So Bob can pick which terms he wants by selecting a row. So Bob can refresh the available contracts and he can sort them here. There's options here, and then the help message explains what's possible. So let's have Bob purchase the first one, the strike price of 2.5 Jed, premium of 0.9 Jed per ADA for this one. And then this message will pop up. This tells you the new contract ID, which is used for the NFT, the key NFT, and this is the fingerprint for the key NFT. And then the premium payment output requires ADA. Since the premium is paid in Jed, you still have to cover the minimum UTXO for that output to the writer, the seller. This is an additional cost to you, so you should factor this into what kind of premium are you willing to pay. Then for this one, let's have Bob buy the third possible contract. And again, this is the contract ID for this one, and the key NFT's fingerprint. This one also requires a minimum UTXO. Again, this is not a deposit. This is an additional cost to you. And now if we go to the builder, we can see the 2 purchases here. This is the output reference for the proposal being purchased. This is where the payment is going to go, the premium payment. And you can see the actual, it's 100 ADA getting converted to 90 Jed. It's factoring in the strike price you used here. And then this one is 100 ADA to 100 Jed, again factoring in the strike price here. If you change your mind about which terms you want to use, you could just click. And it'll now tell you, like, you still have the minimum UTXO value requirement. The conversion has also now been updated. But let's go back to the first row for this. And now to actually buy these, Bob needs to balance the transaction to cover the premiums. So go to home. We're going to specify a change address. The key NFTs are going to go to the address you choose as the change address. And then we have to pick the collateral UTXO for the smart contracts, and then we need to actually pay for the premium, which is in Jed. We need 8 Jed. So let's search for Jed. This one has 77 Jed. This will work. And now the builder is ready to go. And we can click build. So the transaction fee here is 0.77 ADA. So we have to export and sign with the terminal. And then we go to the terminal. This is the command we use again, but this time we're specifying Bob's personal key. He doesn't need to sign with the stake key. We hit enter, and now we just have to submit the transaction. So we go to the builder tools, submit external transaction, and type in the file path, and click confirm. And this is the transaction hash. And now we wait for the transaction to get processed. That took a little while, but it finally went through. If we go to the notifications, it says that native asset balances have changed. So if we go to the address we used and go to transactions, we can now see the purchase transaction. We paid 8 Jed and got 2 key NFTs. And the key NFTs can now be found under native assets. So if we filter just for options, we now see the 2 options keys. So managing options keys is just like managing loan keys. There's this fingerprint button that allows you to look up the current state of the contract. So this one's active, and you can see the terms. This is the UTXO's output reference for the actual contract. This is where payments must go to, the ask, the strike price that was chosen, and the expiration. It was January 1st, 2025, but it was the end of the day. But this midnight technically counts as the next day here. Then all options contracts have only one action that's possible at a time. If the contract is active, you can execute the contract. If it's expired, then you can just burn the useless key NFT. You can't see it because it's underneath me, but there's a button here. Right now it says execute contract because the contract is active. If the contract was expired, this button would allow you to burn the extra key NFT. Again, this button here is for the secondary market, but there'll be a dedicated video to that. Let's execute this contract. So we're going to give Jed in order to get the ADA there. And it's going to automatically add the UTXO with the key NFT to the builder. Close that. We can check out the other key if you wanted to. So in the builder, we're going to execute this options contract. It has the output reference for the contract UTXO. This is where the payment is going to go, and then this is the contract ID. So we're going to be giving Jed in exchange for ADA. The options contract is giving us ADA using the strike price here. And now we just need to balance and submit this transaction. To balance the transaction, Bob actually needs to supply the required Jed. If we look at the change, it says Bob actually already has Jed in this transaction, but he's missing 20. The Jed is probably with the key NFT. He's got 69.98 Jed. We need to cover the additional Jed. If we go to the UTXOs and search for Jed, this is the only UTXO Bob has with Jed, and actually this is the UTXO that's already in the builder. If we click spend UTXO, it says this input is already being spent. So Bob actually doesn't have enough Jed. So what he can do is go to the DEX and he can swap another asset for Jed. For example, he can trade USDM for Jed. He needs 20 Jed, so he can buy Jed for a slight premium to cover the difference. If we go to Bob's address and this time search for USDM, it's the same UTXO, but it actually has 478 USDM. You could also see that from the native assets page that it says he's got 478 USDM in one UTXO. So he has almost 500 USDM available to convert to Jed. We'll use this one. We're going to pay up a little bit because we want to avoid UTXO contention because we actually want the execution of the contract to go through. We're only going to purchase the exact amount of Jed that we need, which is 20.02. Just want to double check that. 20.02. And it's going to cost us 20.43 USDM. Click confirm. Then the minimum UTXO value for the swap increased. Again, there are ways to prevent this from happening in the future. It just requires some standardization. And now if we go to the builder, it is actually balanced now. We just need to specify the change address and collateral. So the change address is going to be this. Then we need to reset this so we could see collateral UTXOs. We're going to use this one. And now the builder is fully balanced. So we are using the DEX to help provide the necessary liquidity that Bob needs in order to actually execute the contract he wants. Let's build this transaction. The total transaction fee is 0.63 ADA. And we're going to export so that we can sign it with the terminal. The options part of this transaction prevents Harbor wallets from being able to sign it. We only need one key, and it's Bob's personal key. So if we go to the terminal now, this is Charlie's personal key. We need Bob's personal key. So we click, change it to 2 and click enter. Now we can submit the external transaction. So this is the transaction hash where Bob executed the contract, relying on the DEX to provide the extra liquidity that he needed. So we can see that the transaction was already processed. And under transactions, we can see that we burned the required options key NFT. We spent 69.98 JED and 20.43 USDM and got 99 ADA. The options contract ADA covered the fees, but this is the net change of the ADA. Okay, now we're going to go back to Charlie to see what happened from his perspective. So we log out and go back to Charlie, and then we have to resync. And then under notifications, it says proposed options contract statuses have changed and active options contract statuses have changed. Some contracts have expired. So we go to options. This time there's only one proposal contract left. Remember that Bob bought the other two. But now under active contracts, you can see that there are two contracts. This is the options contract, the active one that was not executed. This one was created a long time ago, but it's expired. That's what the other notification is about. Some contracts have expired. So this is what the page looks like for active contracts. Again, these are the ones that are waiting to be executed. They've already been purchased. They're waiting to be executed. You can sort and filter them. Each one has an associate help message, so I'm not going to go into details there. You have the offer amount, the ask amount based off of the strike price, and the expiration. So this one was actually December 21st, 2024, but midnight counts as the next day. Then all active contracts only have, or all options contract only have two possible actions at a time. So this button is going to be one of those actions. If the contract is active, you can change the required payment address. If you click it, you can choose from a drop-down for all of your tracked home addresses. We didn't add another one, so there's still only one option here. If the contract is expired, then you can just close the expired contract. So let's close the expired contract. And while we're at it, perhaps Bob wants to change the terms for his proposal. So let's edit this. And we'll just change the strike prices to, let's do 93, 95, and 102. And click confirm. The premiums and expirations will stay the same. So now in the builder, we're going to update one of the proposal contracts and close an expired contract. Because it's so easy to combine managing active and proposals in the same transaction, you could actually just close an expired contract and then recreate it with a new expiration and strike price if you wanted to. So let's have Charlie balance and submit this transaction. We just need to provide an address, change address, and then the collateral. And now that's enough. The closing this expired contract is actually going to cover balancing what we need for the other one. We'll build. The total transaction fee is 0.64, and the required signatures is both the staking key and the personal key. So let's export this and then go to the terminal to sign. To sign, we need this command again. This time we're going to do the personal key and the staking key for Charlie. So we click enter, and now we just go back and submit external transaction. And that's it. While we wait for the transaction to get processed, let's check out the options history. The options history is very similar to the DEX position history. Like you could see the summary of what happened. So for example, in this transaction, one of the options contract was executed, and the one before that, two contracts were purchased. And you can also inspect the transaction. So you can see the inputs. These two were purchased, and you can even see which terms were purchased. And you can see the resulting, these are active contracts. So if we go to the top one, the executed transaction, we can see that this one was executed. And just like with the other histories, you can filter and search by the associated trading pairs involved. I've resynced the wallet, so now we have the updated proposal. The expired contract is now gone, and we no longer get the expired contract notification. Instead, it tells us that the proposed options contract statuses have changed and the active status has also changed since we closed the expired one. So the final thing to show is research. If you're a writer and you don't know which terms, like how much to charge for the premium, what the strike prices should be, or what the expiration should be, you can see what other people are doing. So you can specify the offer asset and the ask asset from the writer's perspective. So in this case, it was ADA. The contracts that we've created today were selling ADA in exchange for JED. Click confirm. And it shows us the one active contract that's still open. And you can resync or sort them just like the other from the buying page. You can also research proposed contracts, but you just use the buying page for that. There's no reason to have that also under research tab. So you can use this to figure out what the market currently thinks about premiums, strike prices, etc. That's it for this tutorial. Like I said, the flow for options trading is pretty basic. Please note, with options, there is technically UTXO contention when buying options contracts. However, that is how TradFi works too. And just like with TradFi, market maker businesses can be built around this options trading protocol to allow users to buy options through them instead of directly through the protocol. This would prevent end users from ever experiencing this contention. And there are likely other ways to help mitigate the issue of UTXO contention. If you have any suggestions or feature requests, please reach out.